What is up there, guys? This is Cobb and welcome to a quick video looking at a Q&A done recently with Mr. Hazard Costas and Law. We're going to be honing in on the Warlock part. Bear in mind that I'm a Destruction Warlock PvP player. Don't know much about PvE, don't know too much about the other specs, especially about Demonology. So yeah, we're going to be honing in on those parts. I also want to mention that I did make a video of this already. I didn't render it, probably not going to upload it. I was too salty, alright? I was too fucking salty. I ended up just getting too emotionally driven in my responses to this crap, because I was recording it, you know, as soon as the Q&A was done, and screw it, I have some time to chill now, and I want to be more constructive in this one. I just want to throw out there straight away that Destruction Warlocks are in a good place in PvP, alright? We're in a good place, strength-wise, but how strong the class is isn't a damn problem. It's that it's boring, okay? It's that it's boring. Not that Legion's boring. The expansion in and of itself, as a whole, is fucking awesome. The expansion is brilliant, and we are strong in PvP. We're just boring. The gameplay side of things, of actually playing Warlocks, can't speak so much for the other two specs, but it's just boring. And that's my main problem with the spec. And fuck it, let's get straight into what these guys have got to say.
Other general concerns.
That's in slow motion.
I definitely heard
Let's just
other general concerns. You know, I have seen a lot about, you know, mobility, about reliance on hard casts, definitely from a PvP perspective, which is also tied into mobility. Some of that I think we're not likely to change.
Feels bad. It's panic time, boys, alright? So, a lot of the feedback that people have been giving on forums, and a lot of my problem, especially with the spec, with Destro, with Warlocks in general in PvP, is the lack of mobility. Alright? The lack of mobility sucks, man. I really hate just being like a sponge, sitting there soaking up damage, while just basically trying to damage race people at the end of the day. I sort of just feel like a blood DK or something, you know? It feels very, very bizarre. It doesn't feel like Warlock is classically felt. In Warlords of Draenor, we started going this direction where we just become tanks a little bit, you know? We just kind of spammed Ember Tap to heal through things. It's gone next level. It's gone Super Saiyan in Legion, you know? We don't even really do that much damage anymore. At least in weight of base damage. We can cleave out a lot of damage with Havoc and stuff like that. And sure, man, we can finish really good on damage boards and things like Battlegrounds and stuff, you know? So PvP damage is okay, but doesn't really feel like Destro to me. Anyway, let's let him justify his previous point.
And that's a reflection of our philosophy when it comes to classes in Legion.
That means class fantasy.
We would much rather double down on strengths than try to shore up weaknesses. And because when you try to shore up weaknesses, it's an easy thing to do, right? Coming up with an ability or changing things to give Warlocks more mobility or more instance, more things they can do on the move.
That'll be awesome.
That's not a hard problem to solve, but what it does is it, you know, kind of tends towards that homogenization where, you know, when weaknesses go away, it's like if everyone's sort of equally good at everything, then what distinguishes classes from each other?
All right. So Demonic Circle is an unpickable talent because it's beside Dark Pact, because mages have Blink, and because monks have that monk demonic circle, or whatever the hell it is. I don't know if it's called Transcendence, or it's probably not called Transcendence, but monks have a teleport, alright, and it's basically just the monkish demonic circle. And they don't want to however the fuck you even say that word, alright? At this point, it feels to me like Blizzard's idea of what Warlocks should be is different to what the player base's idea of what Warlocks should be, and have classically been for like the past 8 years. Destruction Warlocks, especially to me, have always felt like this, you know, ultra aggressive, high utility spec in PvP, where you can just throw out an obscene amount of base damage, unless it's the Cataclysm expansion where our damage was just sort of gimped. Throw out a ton of damage, but also have reasonable mobility and have a lot of CC, alright? You kind of control the flow of games a lot as Warlocks. Now we just sort of tank bots, right? And the thing that really has me worried is that Blizzard think that it's fine. They think that it's good. Or that's the direction that they want to take the class in, should I say. They think that that's the direction that Warlocks should be heading in. We should be less mobile and more tanky. Fun be damned, right? Fun be damned. It doesn't matter if it's less fun that we play like that. That's just the way that they want Warlocks to be.
So, what if we'd rather... We're not saying things are perfect by any means. It's more that let's say that warlocks are less mobile and they are more tanky rather than evasive, right? Whereas in theory, the mage is hard to pin down. They're squishy if you can do so, but they're going to root you and blink away. They're going to, be hard to get a hold of. The warlock, okay, you can pin them down, but they should be tankier. They should be much more resilient in a way that reflects what the essence of a warlock is all about.
Alright, so mages should be more mobile, warlocks should be tankier. Alright. Hasn't that been the case for, like, again, an extremely, extremely long time already? Like, warlocks have always been tankier than mages. Things like Soul Link, Demonic Circle used to help us out with that. It's not even an amazing mobility spell, but it gives us, we can just jump away from melees once every, what, was it 24-second cooldown? Whatever, man, it's a fairly long cooldown to be able to jump away from melees, to a fixed position, so they always know exactly where you've gone. But the point is, warlocks have always been more tanky than mages. We've always been more tanky than mages, and they've always been more mobile, just not to this extent. And it feels like, again, Blizzard's idea, like, I don't want to speak for everybody. Maybe some people are enjoying Warlock right now and kind of agree with Blizzard's idea of the class fantasy. But for me, at least, and for a lot of people I've spoken to, I'll just say it like that, it kind of feels like we're being pushed into a playstyle that we just didn't sign up for, man. Like, God. Okay, I'm gonna go really far back here, but fuck it, alright? Since, like, the Burning Crusade, up until the end of Mists of Pandaria, and even some people might even argue Warlords of Draenor, but I'm just gonna go with Mists of Pandaria, right? Basically, everyone who started playing the class from TBC until Mists of Pandaria, I think at least, feels like they're playing a different class right now, right? I might be wrong on that, but I think that statement could apply to quite a lot of people. I feel like Warlock just doesn't feel like Warlock anymore. I feel like we've been pushed so far to this point where, we're super tanky now. The tankiness of the spec has been, like, magnified so much, But it's at the expense of our really, really iconic control spells. Shadow Fury now has a cast time and is basically unplayable. Fee is still with us. That's lovely. Death Coil isn't. Death Coil's gone. We don't even have a slow on Conflagrate anymore. And these are things that have existed for a long, long time, dude. And it just feels... It feels like we're playing a brand new class, this expansion. And it's not a class, like I said, that I feel like I signed up for. And I mean, isn't it one thing saying that you don't want to have every class homogeneous? You got, like, mages blinking. But then you don't you have the monk teleport still? And you still have things like Displace a Beast on druids. And, even shamans can, like, spec into that leap thing, or they just have Ghost Wolf. It feels like basically every other class has some form of mobility thing apart from Warlocks now, unless you're just going to sit there and try and get a gateway off, which I suppose you can do that on most arena maps, but it's a hell of a cooldown on that thing, right?
So going forward, we'd rather look to build on those strengths and get all of you to a place where you are powerful, you are fearsome, but relying on those strengths.
So the more that we QQ, the tankier we'll get, boys.
Other thing,
I don't mean to sound salty with that, alright, but it just seems to be what's being hinted there, okay? They want to really hone in and focus on our strengths as a class. Right now, our strength as a class, I guess being able to consistently damage, at least if you go Shadowbane Spec as Destro, kind of consistently damage while live lording with absorbs.
Things I've heard, I know there's a lot of Destruction Warlocks who aren't huge fans of their mastery.
Oh, man.
Because of an RNG feel to it. And that's, like, it's hard to argue with the psychology. I mean, I get that if you don't like the way it feels, I can't say, well, you're wrong, you should feel differently, your brain should work differently, because, I mean, that's very valuable feedback. On our end, we think of it, though, as it's kind of like crit, right? I mean, it's very easy to look at, oh, well, I have this mastery that makes my Chaos Bolt have a huge variance in the damage that it does. But in most situations, you are casting many Chaos Bolts over a longer period of time, and it's going to average out. The same way, I mean, inherently, crit at its base is a 100% variance between a crit and a non-crit, and even higher than that for some specs that have crit damage boosters. And that's not seen as something that's crippling.
Alright, so the mastery, I'm not that bothered about it right now, using the Shadowbane spec as a PvP player, because, like he mentions, most fights go on for long enough in PvP, I think, where you're going to be getting off, like, fucking 7 or 8 Shadowbanes on one target, and it does sort of just average out. Like, the mastery doesn't really impact that much. PvE point of view, really no idea. I suppose over shorter fights, yeah, it might just suck for PvE players. My knowledge of PvE is like the occasional heroic, alright? If you're a PvE player and you're putting yourself some destruction, let us know what you think down below in the comments, educate us, enlighten us. But as far as PvP goes, I think it's okay. If Chaos Bolt spec becomes the main spec and the damage of Chaos Bolt is buffed, so it actually becomes viable to cast the fucking waste of action bar space, then okay, I can see this being maybe a little bit more frustrating than rewarding, but I don't really mind. I don't really mind the mastery that much. Like I said, I do kind of akin it to crit a little bit. So yeah, it doesn't really do anything for me, but I wouldn't complain either, I guess.
It averages out in the long run. Obviously, there's some cases, like in PvP,
Sure.
if you have a very narrow burst window,
Yeah.
hitting the low end of your range versus the high end of your range may be frustrating. But the flip side there is that also having that variability, having that high end versus just kind of splitting the difference every time, means that other times you will get that burst kill that otherwise would have eluded you.
Yeah, and I think in PvP, I think there's a lot of interesting gameplay in the sort of element of, oh crap, that was a huge Chaos Bolt.
Said nobody ever in Legion.
He's just suddenly down to like 30% health.
God damn, man. Like, how hard? You'd have to stack like 4 Berserker buffs, dude. Right, this shit cracked me up. You're gonna have to stack like 4 Berserker buffs and Dark Soul. And maybe even be getting like, I don't know, some other tertiary buff to come even close to 1 Chaos Bolt dropping somebody to 30% health, right? I don't care how high your fucking mastery rolls. That would just be a godlike achievement. Imagine trying to pull that in Arena, okay? I'm sure that he doesn't mean the Chaos Bolt literally dropping someone from 100% to 30%. But you know what I mean? Like, Chaos Bolt is nowhere near as scary as that statement implies. It's more critting along the lines of between 200 and 300k, depending on your mastery roll and whether you have Dark Soul up.
And
which, by the way, is like 10% of somebody's health, or 15% of somebody's health. Which for 2 soul shards and a meatball of a cast time. That's why it's just like on my second action bar and I just never press that button.
being able to have the sort of like mental gymnastics that you go through to be able to say, okay, he's low now. Like right now is the time that we need to try to go for a kill. Versus, okay, we chaos bolted and he's down to 60%. He's probably fine. Let's back off for just a second.
Why couldn't they make Chaos Bolt more rewarding instead of just buffing the damage? Because this would make the spec more fun as well. Whenever you Chaos Bolt, like, your next 3 Incinerates become instant cast. What's wrong with that? Give Shadowban like a 5-second cooldown or something if you need to. Give it like a 5-second cooldown, double the damage of Shadowban, because its damage is quite tickly right now. Double the damage of Shadowban, 5-second cooldown, Chaos Bolt grants 3 instant cast Incinerates. Or grants move while casting for, I don't know, 5 seconds. What's wrong with that? Nothing is wrong with that, man. Don't give me that old homogenization argument, alright? Oh, it's too much like Fire Mage. No, it's not. Alright, it's just making the spec fun. Please, give us something.
So I personally find that really interesting.
Another thing, and one other general point. And I'm trying to not. I don't want to sound patronizing in any way, though I'm sure some will take it that way.
Here we go, boys.
Appreciate
Look
the
at Lol's
feedback,
face.
and I get when people are frustrated or unhappy with the state of their class, with the state of their spec, and you're just, you want to express that frustration. It's actually it's very unconstructive in a lot of ways to communicate that frustration through spamming up threads or just trying to start petitions. I actually went to the Warlock class forums on multiple occasions, knowing like, okay, Warlocks are clearly upset about something. What is it that they're upset about? Is there a summary of issues somewhere? And when 95% of the posts on the forum are just general, petitions and signed and let's delete and time to re-roll, it actually clouds our ability to get at the heart of the issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so I totally get where it's coming from. A tiny amount. Alright, I think that statement applies a little bit. you do get those posts on the forums. Fuck this class. I reroll feral, lol, and shit like that, you know. Quit the game, uninstalled yesterday, you know. You do get those kind of posts, you do. But there were like 3 mega threads on the US, and 1 super thread of like 300 posts or something on the EU, calling all Warlocks. You might have read those posts. I tell you what, man, you could write a book with how many essays people have written on those, giving very, very constructive feedback. And to Hazakostas' credit, he has already made a blue post on the forums, just mentioning that he didn't word it very well in this interview, or in this Q&A. He did actually read through the Warlock threads quite a bit more, and did find some really constructive feedback, so he worded it quite badly here. I wish he took the time to word it better, because a lot of people are pissed by this response, because, like I said, there was so much constructive feedback there. You know, like, why is mana tap a talent? There's so much consistent feedback there, actually. So much consistent feedback. A lot of people making the same points. Why were embers removed from Destro? Is that not part of our class fantasy? Why do fire mage... Don't fire mages now, like, smolder on fire, you know? When they're, like, heating up and shit? Wasn't that just taken away from Destro? Like, what about our class fantasy, man? Things like mana tap being a talent. It's just a maintenance buff. It's boring. It's not fun. Case Bolt should be hitting a lot harder. It's like consistent feedback as well. And there's a whole number of things that people are consistently bringing up in these threads. And I don't think it's at all as noisy as is being made out here. I also want to say as well that, yeah, while you do get a lot of like, even in those mega threads, sure, man, you get some really awesome detailed essays. This is what's wrong here, and I think that this should be tweaked, and this talent is a problem talent, something should be done about it, all the rest of it. And then, a bit further down the page, you get some guy, your original poster is right, but nothing will be done, I delete, you know? You get, like, a comment like that from, like, a Spud, you know? Potato comes by the comment, comes by the forum and leaves a comment like that. You gotta appreciate that at least what he's doing there is throwing his weight and his support behind the original poster, right? It might not look like it on the surface, and to a cynical person coming by the threads, it might just look like he's just QQing, and that his comment is worthless. But it's not. He's throwing his weight behind the original poster of the thread, and therefore it kind of speaks to the fact that a lot of people just don't have the time or patience, right? Me included, to go into the goddamn forums and write an essay about everything that's wrong about the class, or everything that we don't enjoy about the class in any given expansion. A lot of the times, I just posted on those mega threads, you know? And all I posted was, I agree that Warlocks need fixing, basically. I'd also like to add that I think that this is an issue. See ya. Like, less than half a paragraph, you know, basically. Would my comment have just been disregarded? I like to think not. Just because it's not a huge essay, you know. What I'm doing is supporting the thread and supporting the people who have posted the huge essays there. And I hope that the numbers don't just seem like spam, or like a hashtag spam, you know, all up on the threads. I hope that they realize that when, on the US forums, when they've maxed out 3 threads, calling all Warlocks 1, 2, and edition 3, okay, these things have been maxed out. I hope that they realize that that's not just spam. That is the plebby Warlocks backing up the elite Warlocks who are doing all of the typing work and typing up the essays for us, you know?
Like, not that we can't tell that there's an issue.
Right.
It's
we're actually trying to figure out, like...
Yeah.
And because a lot of the times also, you know, there are all sorts of conflicting feedback. It's you ask 10 people, they're all unhappy, but they're unhappy for different reasons that are often directly opposed to each other. Where trying to make things better for person A would actually make them worse for person B.
Kind of agree with what he's saying there. I kind of understand it, but like I say, man, a lot of the complaints were very consistent. Like, I don't know how Mana Tap, the talent Mana Tap, for example, made it through Alpha. How did it even get through Alpha? How did it get through Beta? Why is it live right now, you know? It's just a talent that everyone dislikes. I don't think I've met anyone who picked that talent and thought, fuck yeah, man. Fuck yeah, I've been looking forward to using this 10%, you know, 20-second duration, 25% mana-consuming damage buff and maintaining this during a boss fight, or trying to maintain this through arena, you know, then having to life tap when I'm super low on mana. No one enjoys mana tap, alright? Fuck it. I don't like to generalize, but no one enjoys mana tap. Consistent.
So we're trying to understand kind of the broad base of shared issues, things like ramp up time. It's like, yeah, we take a step back and look at that and can quickly realize that's a really valid concern. They're right. Let's see what we can do about it. That's effective advocacy, right? I would love to get linked more substantive, well-written, well-supported posts that feel like they command a majority of the community's respect, and fewer hashtags.
Okay, it's fair enough. I'm just going to stop the clip all up in here, and we're going to wrap this video up. Again, I like softly disagree with what he just said there. I kind of feel like there have been a shit ton of very, very constructive posts made on both the EU and, for the most part, I guess, the US forums. On the EU forums, we don't give a damn, alright? We're so cynical on the EU forums, we just don't believe that they even visit them, the devs, you know, so a lot of people just don't bother, but the US, you guys have been doing well, so cheers for that. So yeah, like I say, I just kind of feel like Blizzard have a very, very different idea of what Warlocks should be, and what they should feel like when you play them, you know, as opposed to what the player base, or at least, you know, myself and a lot of other Warlock players who played the class for a long time who I know, a lot of you guys who come by the live stream, for example, and we've all talked about this quite a lot over on the stream already. A lot of us just feel like it's a different class, dude. We kind of feel like a bit more of a potato-y Shadow Priest, if that makes sense. Like a Shadow Priest with less utility, but bigger shields. I think that's quite accurate. I think that's kind of what we feel like right now as Destro and PvP, at least. So, I don't know. Hopefully this wasn't just like too QQ-y of me. I have lost a little bit of hope, because it sounds to me like they're just going to keep on pushing with their idea of what Warlock should be like, and you know, that to me can only mean more survivability, you know. At best we can hope for like shield buffs. Maybe we'll get like some damage tuning buffs and stuff like that, of course, but the general playstyle of the class doesn't look like it's going anywhere for at least a year and a bit, like a year and a half, right? So fuck it. I'm glad that leveled me some ults, alright? So whenever I start getting tired of Destro, I can just log on over to the Hunter, log on over to the Death Knight, which isn't level 110 yet, but hey, level up some other classes as well, I guess. And it's going to be hard to maintain them because of the artifact system and the way that all works now, but I'm going to give it a go because this expansion is worth it, dude. This expansion, excuse me, is fucking awesome. This expansion is brilliant. I'm going to make a video soon talking about why I think this expansion is so damn good compared to Warlords of Draenor, and it's really took me by surprise, and I think that Blizzard do at least have to be applauded for that. Fucking fantastic expansion, man. So addicted to the game again right now. And if it wasn't for the class design, some of the specs just being butchered, I would be comparing this expansion right now to the likes of, you know, the greatness that was Wrath of Lich King. Maybe not from a PvE point of view. Wrath of Lich King PvE, I heard, was just legendarily fucking awesome, so at least PvP wise, and you know, the general feel of addiction to the game really reminds me of Wrath right now. Anyway, you guys share some thoughts down below. Be awesome to read through them. Now I am going to leave it here. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day now. Go and queue up a battleground. I'm going to catch all of you guys just a tad bit later.